Gang's all here? Very good. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this update on the storm event that happened today, as well as the storm conditions that we're expecting in the coming days. Joining me this afternoon at our City Operations Center are the leaders of our Office of Emergency Services, our Incident Management Team, and members of our city's executive team. In a moment, I'm going to ask our Fire Rescue Chief, Colin Stoll, our Deputy Chief Operations Officer, Chris McFadden, and our Transportation Director, Bethany Bezak, to provide you all with some additional updates. But first, I want to start by saying how grateful I am to the public and to our city team for the preparations that were made in advance of today's storm. In particular, I want to extend my thanks and appreciation to San Diegans, particularly those in the impacted neighborhoods of Southcrest, Mountain View, Encanto, and Rolando, who worked with us, prepared, and heeded the calls of warning in advance of today's rain event. I want to share that we anticipate lifting the evacuation warning tomorrow morning, and the city will issue an official notice once it is lifted. However, I want to let San Diegans know that we are not out of the woods yet. Now is not the time to remove your sandbags. The National Weather Service tells us that we can expect a potentially extremely heavy rainfall starting on Monday and carrying on into Tuesday. With that forecast, I'm asking San Diegans in flood-prone areas to remain vigilant and to prepare for next week as you did for today. We'll continue to monitor incoming weather information and update residents through the various channels that we have established, including going in person door to door, at public resource centers, on social media, and through the news media. We will share everything that we know with all of you as Monday's storm approaches. With staffing assistance from the Red Cross, the city has stood up an evacuation center at the Balboa Park Municipal Gym for displaced residents. The center opened last night and welcomed upwards of 50 people who had been previously sheltering at Lincoln High School. Roughly 65 people are sheltering there today. The center offers meals, showers, and beds. Pets are welcome. For residents in the impact communities from last Monday's storm, the city has arranged for transportation for them to get from the incident area to the city's temporary shelter. We have also partnered with United Taxi Workers to provide on-demand rides at no charge. We've also partnered with the San Diego Unified School District to provide bus transportation from the impacted communities at 4 specific times throughout the day from 3 specific locations. Those are the Encanto Rec Center, the Mountain View Beckworth Library, and the College Rolando Library. These pickups took place today, and they will continue to occur tomorrow. The County of San Diego is establishing a housing assistance program to connect displaced residents with long-term housing while they wait to get back into their homes. In the meantime, our city's housing mission and community-based organizations have been assisting residents by providing other shelter options, including hotel rooms. As of an hour ago, the Housing Commission has been able to place 37 households and pets into hotel rooms, with 10 more ready to move in. An additional 62 other households have been connected with other housing resources. Households placed into hotels are also being assessed for emergency food needs, and they are receiving support from the San Diego Food Bank as needed. Working with community-based organizations, the San Diego Housing Commission is currently working to triage more than 200 other households for assistance. Now, ahead of the next rain event, which we expect again on Monday, I want to remind all San Diegans to take action now to prepare for that rain event. As I mentioned yesterday, that includes sweeping up and picking up trash, leaves, and other debris that may be around storm drains and curb gutters in your area. Keep lids secured on your trash cans and recycle bins, and make sure that they are at least 2 to 3 feet away from the curb so that stormwater is not impeded. Know the safest routes to and from your property should flooding occur. And if you don't need to be on the road during the storm, please support our first responders by staying home. And as always, never ever drive, ride, or walk through floodwaters. Sand and sandbags will continue to be available at 11 recreation centers, which are listed on the city's website, sandiego.gov/storm. This is the go-to information center for residents to get updates on storm preparations and resources. Again, I want to reiterate my appreciation to city crews for their work around the clock to prepare for this storm and for the work that they'll continue to do in the days ahead to prepare for the next storm. I want to thank members of my community engagement team who here at the city and members of the community from all across our city, again, particularly those neighborhoods in southeastern and in southern San Diego, for stepping up and helping one another during this time. I'm grateful to all San Diegans for stepping up to help their neighbors in this time of extreme weather. With that, I'll turn this over to our Fire Chief, Colin Stoll. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. And I want to echo what the mayor said and give a big thank you to all San Diegans for heeding to our requests yesterday to stay home, to avoid driving, stay off the roads. That made a huge success and a big difference. I visited our dispatch center today, and everything was, as far as call volume, was very manageable, and that was due to everyone heeding to those warnings to stay home, stay safe, stay off the roads. I'm happy to report that we only had one water rescue today, and that was in the Choyas Creek area where we rescued 2 males from about waist-deep water with no injuries. Our teams will continue to be out there throughout the night, and we will continue to staff our lifeguard swiftwater rescue teams all day tomorrow to assess if there's any runoff from the other areas that continue to run through those creek beds. I want to reassure you and reassure all the residents and visitors of San Diego that we stand prepared and continue to be able to staff everything we need to be able to mitigate and help those in need through the storms and the after effects tomorrow, as well as in preparation for next week. I also want to echo another thing that the mayor said is to stay diligent. Be prepared for next week, those storms. We do expect quite a bit of rain on Monday and Tuesday. Take advantage of this weekend. If you have not prepared yourself as far as your go packets, making sure you know what you need to take, plan your routes out. But you did your best today. You did exceptionally well, and we are very fortunate for how the after effects from this storm were. And so again, don't get complacent. Stay prepared for next week, and rest assured that your public safety members are here and ready to respond. With that, I'll turn it over to Deputy Chief Operating Officer Chris McFadden.
Thank you, Chief. The good news that Choyas Creek is flowing. I was down there this morning at 9:30 a.m. It was really a great sight to see. Our Storm Patrol teams have also been monitoring the conditions, not just in Choyas Creek, but throughout all of San Diego. The water is staying in its banks, and so far today it looks like we got a little help from Mother Nature, which is very good news. We certainly did not see near the quantity or quality of intensity that we did on January 22nd. Our city crews, I really thank them desperately. It's been an amazing experience to work collaboratively with them over the past 10 days. They've really done an amazing amount of work. Again, being able to inspect and clear 4 miles of Choyas Creek is an amazing feat. We fast-tracked the completion of all these emergency fixes, including several in our concrete channels, which can be particularly vulnerable to high flows. We will, of course, continue to inspect all these channels throughout the city, throughout this storm, and be fully prepared before Monday's rains. I want to note the amazing amount of material. Over 5,500 tons were actually removed from the Choyas Creek watershed. Amazing work. Also, over 300 employees were deployed throughout the city in our public works groups to ensure that everybody is safe before not just today's rain, but the rest of the year predicted. I do want to also shout out to our Park and Recreation team, who's really helped protect private property to get more sandbags at 11 rec centers throughout the entire city. And again, please be sure to check our website for the most updated information for city residents, sandiego.gov/storm. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our Transportation Director, Bethany Bezek.
Thank you, Chris. The city's Storm Patrol teams were in full effect today across all of our neighborhoods. In particular, our teams were closely monitoring all low-lying areas and any areas that regularly flood. Last night, we proactively closed roads in South Crest and in Canto. In addition, today, we closed roads as our city teams observed localized flooding. Currently, there are approximately 30 locations across the city with road closures due to flooding. These areas include portions of Fashion Valley, Sorrento Valley, Tijuana River Valley, Mission Bay, Encanto, and Mountain View. Residents can find the latest status of road closures at sandiego.gov/storm. Overall, the total volume of calls to our Public Works Dispatch Center was relatively low compared to the storm on January 22nd. Today, we received 390 calls to our Public Works Dispatch Center compared to 1,027 calls during last week's storm. Of those, 75 were emergency calls today versus 404 emergency calls last Monday. The volume of calls and the nature of the calls is a direct reflection of the lower intensity rain and the lower rainfall totals overall. Portions of the city experienced high winds, but again, the call volume was relatively low. We received 13 calls related to trees. 2 of these were fallen trees, and none were related to home or vehicle damage. Also, 1 streetlight knockover is being currently assessed by our city teams. Tomorrow and into the weekend, our teams will be assessing the city's streets to ensure access and safety. We will be prioritizing areas that need cleanup and street sweeping. Over the weekend, we'll also be tracking the upcoming storm forecasted to begin on Monday, and our teams will be preparing accordingly to protect our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Bethany. And we have our police chief, David Nislight, is here, as well as Chris Heiser, the director of our Office of Emergency Services. I'm happy to answer any questions folks may have.
Just from the beginning, when we're looking at this next Monday, how do you think things will be different from what we experienced just last Monday in terms of if we have similar rainfalls or even more, will our infrastructure react the same way that we've been experiencing?
There's certainly people here who could probably answer that better, but what as it's been explained to me by our city experts, is that obviously last Monday was an extraordinary amount of rain. Today was significantly less. Next week is somewhere in between. And of course, the difference in all this is the ground continues to be saturated. All right, so what happened last Monday, not the same. Even if it's less rain, the earth can't absorb that much. But obviously, we are taking precautions now to make sure that next week doesn't look anything like last week.
So you're confident the infrastructure will hold a lot better than what we experienced on last Monday?
Well, I think we continue to always have concerns. This is Mother Nature, and it's hard to predict. But I might ask Bethany or Chris to talk some more about that. They are infrastructure experts.
So January 22nd, again, was a once in a 1,000-year storm. Today was probably 1 in 10-year storm. And looking at next week, the predictions, I guess, and again, these could change, it does seem to be spread out more. So probably a little more volume of rain, but again, it's spread out, and that's good. What really affects us is getting that over 1 inch of rain in an hour. And to give you an idea, in the 22nd of January, it was about 2.5 inches of rain, upwards of 3 inches of rain falling in a very specific location within an hour. And that's something that no infrastructure is designed to hold. So that's when we really look out and really count on, and that's why we've had the National Weather Service actually giving us daily briefings, actually twice a day for this storm. We'll continue that for the next storm to be able to make sure that we're keeping everyone as safe as possible.
So Monday, you feel like it's going to be a lot better than what we experienced the last Monday?
Absolutely, yes. But don't let your guard down. Yeah.
And when it comes to how our infrastructure is looking and the recovery efforts compounded with what we're dealing with future storms, how is the recovery effort going in terms of the citizens and the folks that are trying to get back on their feet?
That's a good question. I spent some of my day out with both our city employees and with residents in the affected area. I think they're pleasantly surprised that the rain amount was less today, and that it gives them the space to continue what they're doing in terms of recovery. But with regard to what I saw out there today, it is not what was last Monday. The water is flowing appropriately through the neighborhood, and we're not seeing extraordinary flooding. There is flooding. This is San Diego, the areas that you expect, but not what we experienced the other day. Everyone is happy about that. But we have to, as Chris was just mentioning, as all of these city executives would tell you, this is not the time to put your guard down. We really want people to maintain a sort of active posture on this. Let's wait till we get through all the predicted storms that we're currently experiencing. Obviously, last week was an extraordinary action, and we don't know what Mother Nature has in store for us. So we're going to continue to be proactive, prepared, and know that by doing those things, we're all better off.
And when you get your reports from your team, what areas are you specifically, what's the area that you're most concerned with? I know you listed it a little earlier, but what area is your eye on?
Well, obviously, we're very focused on the South Crest community and Mountain View community. They were hard hit last week. But I'm the mayor of the entire city, and I know there's a lot of folks hurting down in San Ysidro and Nestor, and that hasn't gotten nearly as much attention. There are portions of Sorrento Valley. We have a lot of businesses there that are repeatedly hit by this kinds of actions. All of it is concerning to me because all of it has the potential for the loss of life, and that obviously deeply concerns me. The good news on that front is we have an incredible fire rescue department, police officers, and others that will do anything it takes to save lives and property. And that was true last week, that was true today, and it'll be true next week as well.
And for the folks that are watching that are still in their slopped up floors and
Yeah.
really still struggling, what's the message from the city to those folks that are trying to figure out what to do next?
Get connected to services. Go to the local assistance center and get registered. We're continuing to advocate at the federal level for FEMA assistance to try and get more resources to these affected individuals. If you are not able to occupy your home, the local resource center, the municipal gym, the Red Cross are ways that you can get connected with housing resources. That is my top concern right now. Many of these folks are going to have a multi-month recovery process, and that process has to start now. The sooner it starts, the sooner they'll be able to get back to some level of normalcy. So the message is very clear. If you have been impacted, if your home is currently in a position where you cannot occupy it, there is help that is out there. Please get connected. That initial step will lead to additional steps, and hopefully at some point the federal government will come in and provide that additional assistance to layer in on top of what the city's providing, what the county's providing, what the state is committed to. Hopefully the feds will come in too.
Don't mean to dominate this. How would you characterize our infrastructure in your own words when it comes to storm drains?
It is our biggest liability. I'm asked a lot about pension deficits, budget deficits. I'm rarely asked about an infrastructure deficit, and specifically not the stormwater challenges. When you look at the size of our infrastructure challenges, while I'm often asked about our roads and our sidewalks and our streetlights, I'm rarely asked about our stormwater deficit. But the truth is, when you look at the overall infrastructure picture, it is stormwater. It is the single largest contributor to our unfunded mandates when it comes to repair of infrastructure. And I think the doubling down on that is climate change, right? That what may constitute an acceptable storm drain system today, or 20 years ago, 30 years ago, no longer is appropriate today. I've talked to so many San Diegans today that said that they've lived here their entire lives like I have, and they've never seen anything like this. And they're 100% right. And that's an additional challenge to all of us, not just the lack of resources, but how do you size our system to match our current day realities when the climate's changing?
We have time for one more question.
Yes.
A lot of the communities in South Crescent Mountain complain that they have brought this up with the city multiple times before the rainstorm last week. Why wasn't it addressed when last year we had a pretty significant rainfall as well?
I think that's largely an issue of resources and of regulation. Chris is probably pretty well suited to discuss that. I'll ask him to maybe start, and then I can try and add anything else.
Sure, absolutely. We actually have done maintenance in Choias and dredging as recently as 2022. However, maintaining a 10-year design storm channel is not enough. You can maintain it so it's entirely clean. You get a storm that's higher, it will flood. The only way to address it is through capital improvement projects. We've completed many in the watershed, and actually we have 24 planned in the watershed, some of which are funded directly in Choice Creek watershed, which we're really happy about. Beta Street as well is one of the ones that we're seeking $25 million from FEMA. Fingers crossed, we'll find out in March if we get that funding. But that is a $60 million project, and that is just for one piece of the Choice Creek watershed. So that's really what we have queued up, but we know we need regular funding to address it, because that's the only way we're actually going to, once and for all, solve the problem in Choice Creek.
There will be more funding for future improvement projects?
That will have to be identified, but it's clear that there does need to be additional funding for stormwater. That's no secret, and there have been a lot of discussions around that. What we want to be able to provide is examples like in Choice Creek. When we do have funding, what does that do? It serves the community. It also not just flood protection, but it also improves the water quality in that area. Both are equally important.
And I'll just add on, Chris is our absolute pro. Everything he said, I agree with. I just would say back to that resources and regulation. With regard to resources, I've shared yesterday, I'll repeat today, we charge about 95 cents per household for stormwater, but the true cost to the city is something closer to $10. And in order to get additional resources, in almost every instance, it requires a vote of the people at the ballot box. So that's one of the constraints on resources. In terms of regulation, I certainly have had plenty of conversations with residents recently about where we clean and why it happens or doesn't happen. There's an impression that I can say, go clean that storm drain today, and then it gets done. That is not the case. When we identify a storm channel for clearance, it is a multi-year process to get that done that involves multiple regulatory agencies at the state and federal level, so that when we say clean that, it may take multiple years until it actually happens. And in the meantime, Chris and others have to identify the resources, and the resources aren't just about cleaning out that storm drain. It's also about acquiring mitigation land elsewhere to offset the impacts to what's in that channel. These are nothing that we aspire to have to do. It's what we're required to do by regulators, and of course we follow the law. But what it conspires to is a lack of resources and a lot of regulations, both of which makes this process a burden to actually accomplish. What I would say is this is hopefully an opportunity to explain to people the resource issue, where perhaps we can get some more resources, as well as to speak to our regulators about what they can do to untie our hands to be able to do more of this work faster. I'm impatient by nature. When I see tasks that need to get done, I want to get them done yesterday. In the case of stormwater, that is rarely the case, and it's not by our choosing. It's because that's what we have to do to follow the laws that we operate under.
Can I ask one clarifying question? Today, we reduced the number of locations where sandbags are available for city residents down to 2. Are we increasing that back up to 11?
That's
now,
my
or
understanding, but
are we staying with 2 for the weekend?
Chris, you want?
When we talk about sandbags at 2 locations, that's specific to what I call the impact zone that you see behind me. Sandbags are available throughout the city at, I think, 11 different locations. So it's 2 very specific areas within the impacted communities behind me that we're providing sandbags that are filled, ready to go and be delivered in lots of 450 at a time, up to thousands. But throughout the city, we're providing sand and bags at the locations at the city website.
And how is this affecting the homeless shelters? I know some of them have shut down, some of them are reopening. What's the plan?
Yeah. So the 16th and Newton shelter continues to operate at the Balboa Park Activity Center. All of those folks are relocated to that site last week. They continue to shelter there. I believe we may have some folks from 20th and B there at Golden Hall, but they may have gone back at this point. But the answer to your question is that we actively monitor this. Our Homelessness Strategies and Solutions Department are responsible for those sites along with our Housing Commission, and we actively work to make sure that they are always available to those who need them, and if the rain is somehow impactful to them, we will move them to another location. Reminder that our inclement weather shelter system is activated today as well. Those are additional shelter beds that are available because of the weather conditions that are experienced out there, and we continue to have outreach workers that go out every single day contacting unsheltered individuals, encouraging to accept shelter generally, but advising them of both the risks of the places where they may be encamping, as well as the availability of those inclement weather shelter beds. And again, our ask of our unsheltered population is to accept the services, get into those shelters, make sure you're safe. I think that's all the time we have today. We'll keep you all posted going forward. Thank you so much for helping us get this message out to San Diegans. And again, appreciation to everyone for stepping up today. As you heard from our fire chief, we had a good day. Let's make sure that we continue that tempo through early next week, and we'll keep you apprised of everything that we know. Thank you, everybody.